YouTube Ozick going the Goat House is back. There's been a ton of wild NFL trades this offseason. I don't think we're done yet. There's been some players kind of mentioned as in rumors as potential trade candidates, and we're going to talk about those rumors. We're going to talk about landing spots for these players, and I'm going to give a prediction as well. Got some bold predictions. It's been a bold offseason, so I think some more things will happen here that could surprise some people. So excited to break this down. Let me know your candidates, your thoughts in the comments. We're always talking with you guys on Twitter, rumors, news, thoughts, and more. So check us out there. It's on your screen. There's also a link down below. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. We have a recent mock draft. Got to update that again. We have free agency and trade grades. More to come on those, obviously, as well. So join us for all that. We much appreciate it. Here's our Twitter. There's a lot of updates, constantly news happening. Always have thoughts, always talking with you guys. So, again, link down below. Check it out. First one, kind of the big one right now, DK Metcalf. His name's been mentioned. I think it was more so fans at first. When Russell Wilson got traded, everyone's like, well, the Seahawks going in rebuild mode. They're going to trade DK. Our team will like DK. So I think it's more of what it was. I think the mistake that people make is, this team's in rebuild mode, so they're going to trade anybody. Well, no. DK Metcalf could definitely be part of a rebuild. Definitely young enough. I think Seattle would like to extend him. I guess the reason why he would be traded, not because they're in rebuild mode, but because maybe they can't reach an agreement on an extension or they're way off in price, and Seattle's like, all right, let's flip him for something good. Let's get something good here. So I think a first-round pick and maybe a third-round pick, first and third, or maybe a first, fourth, and sixth, something like that. Not quite as much as maybe Tyreek Hill, for an example, but Metcalf pretty young. There's teams looking for that big body outside receiver. There's not too many that really work out in today's NFL. So I got a list of teams that would be interested. There's more teams that would probably be interested, but do they have a team like the Bears? I would like to fit there. They don't have a first-round pick this year, so the Seahawks maybe just be like, we'll just keep them. Maybe try to work on an extension, if it's not now, later. So you got to have the future cap space. You got to have the draft ammo to trade for him. You got to have the need. You got to feel like he's going to want to play with you, so play for your team. There's a list of teams that are kind of looking for that outside receiver. He was linked to the Packers and Chiefs at one point. Feels like he shut the door on the Chiefs. The Packers, I keep hearing that, maybe they're looking to get him and people are linking him to the Packers. I guess could happen. My prediction, Seattle tries to work on an extension. I think they want him to be part of Seattle for a long time. He could be part of the rebuild. I guess the thing with the Packers, too, is, you traded your superstar receiver. You're going to trade those picks, not exactly, but you're going to trade those picks right back and then pay this superstar receiver. I know they tried to pay Adams, but, does that make a whole lot of sense there? Could argue both sides of that, I suppose. So, I think he ends up back in Seattle. But again, a trade could happen. It would not be because they're deciding rebuild mode, because he could be in rebuild mode. He can be part of it. But it'd be because, they're way off on agreeing on an extension. But they have time to agree on this extension as well. So, but I guess Tyreek Hill and the Chiefs did. But the Chiefs just decided, hey, we're not going to pay that next year either. So we'll see. So this is where I get a little bold. He's the Seattle Seahawks receiver and Tyler Lockett, who they value a lot. They can like very much. He's only 29. Some people have made, I guess that's a question. Is 29 can he be part of a rebuild? I think he can. I like to think that's still young because I'm a year older than him. But I could see this one. If they're truly in just a full-out rebuild mode, I can see them trading him away. I think in terms of the value, I think a second and a third. If not, a second, fourth, and something else, a fifth or a sixth in there. Second and third kind of makes sense. Does a team want to part with both their day two picks? So that's kind of the question. Maybe it takes less than that. Like I said, maybe a second and then a fourth perhaps, and then something else. So you see some teams here that need an outside receiver that could be willing to pay. Pretty team-friendly contract definitely this year, maybe next year. The years after, not so much, though. Pretty damn expensive. So are the teams that aren't valuing receivers at that price and trading away, are they going to want to deal with that future contract? Maybe some of those teams don't worry about that yet because it's a few years away. They're like, all right, we don't like that, but we'll worry about that when the time's right. So trying to figure out these teams' angles here, it's a little tricky. So some teams that have the the space, the need, and the picks there. So I went a little bold. I mean, there's been bold trades, so more could happen. I went with the Jets here, but I'll say the first 4 teams I have listed on the landing spots, those are the teams I'm mainly looking at. The Packers kind of looking for that outsider. They need a receiver badly. And they have some extra draft picks. The Saints have been in on some receivers, kind of missed out. The Jets were in on Tyreek Hill, looking for that receiver. And the Patriots, I actually could see the Patriots just kind of going that young route, which is kind of weird. The Patriots going more that route than the Jets maybe, but I can definitely see that. But I also can see the Patriots trading for Lockett. And they have future cap space, too. They have a good amount. But I went with the Jets here. So, I mean, I could see Lockett definitely going back. They like him. What will teams offer? Will they lowball where it's not worth it to the Seahawks? I could definitely see him going back, but between Metcalf and Lockett, hey, maybe there's a decent shot once traded. I think it's more so Lockett, so I'm going to make a prediction. And I went with the Jets because they were actually very much involved in the Tyreek Hill deal, and there's somewhat of a similar receiver. I know you can get a little more creative with Tyreek Hill, but they're looking for that outside receiver that can separate, can get that home run ball, kind of fit Zach Wilson ball a little bit more there. So do they go for a guy like Lockett now since they barely missed on Tyreek Hill, or do they go draft? There's several fits I like for the Jets, but there's actually 2 first-round receivers that stand out as great fit for the Jets and what they're looking for, and that'd be Jameson Williams, the Alabama receiver, and Chris Olave, the Ohio State receiver. Just 2 outside receivers that are big-time separators, can and get open downfield, kind of fit that Zach Wilson ball, what Zach Wilson ball should be. So, but then the question is, do they take one of those guys at 10? Do they trade back? But then it's a big mystery. The draft is very unpredictable. So do they get this guy now? A guy like Tyler Lockett or someone else, So I went with the Jets here. Could very well see him back with Seattle. Again, I like those first 4 teams as well. Next up, another receiver, DeVante Parker. I actually mentioned yesterday on Twitter, if Tyreek Hill, or 2 days ago, were to be acquired by the Dolphins, I would expect DeVante Parker to be a trade candidate. And then Dolphins got Tyreek Hill, and then guess what? Parker ended up a trade candidate there. So some teams that could be interested. I think his value is pretty low. The Dolphins they restructured Byron Jones and cleared a little bit of space this morning. We talked about that on Twitter as well, the exact numbers and what that means. But they could clear some more space. I actually look at what's important here is future space. Next year, a little bit lower because all the contracts they gave out. And they want to clear a little bit of that. They borrow money from the future. Basically, when you restructure a guy like Byron Jones, you're borrowing money for the future. So now you want to clear that future space, and you clear about $6 or so million with Parker this year, but you clear his contract for next year as well. So they'd be willing, I think, to part with them for a lower pick. Could even be a 7th-round pick. So I'd expect it to be a lower pick there. And he's a solid receiver. He's been a little quiet the last couple years, quiet in the early part. He had that one big-time year, which he got that contract. So some teams that could be interested, or some teams are like, yeah, maybe he doesn't have, he's not the type of guy we're looking for because he doesn't have the crazy separation skills or the crazy speed. He's kind of an outside possession, somewhat contested catch receiver. I like the Eagles. I believe they're showing some interest already as well. I think several teams are really. But I like the Eagles because everyone's kind of waiting, where's the big-time receiver the Eagles going to get? But I talked about before free agency too. The Eagles were probably going to be more quiet than people expected. Why? Because they had a decent amount of cap space, but their draft class, very expensive cap hit-wise. They have 3 first-round picks, so it makes sense. And then future cap, they're actually kind of towards the bottom of the NFL, so they couldn't use future money. So they got that big signing in Hassan Reddick. Maybe there's some more signings coming, but they kind of got to go the cheaper route, for these types of guys here. And they could draft the receiver as well, but I'm sure they want some specific guys. If it's going to be a first rounder, will he be there? Are they going to have to trade up? So that's kind of the question still, the unpredictable draft. It's unpredictable every year, obviously. I think this one's even more unpredictable. So they may just go for a cheap in terms of, price-wise as well. He's, kind of cheap compared to other receivers, but in terms of the value, the compensation, we have to trade away. So the Eagles make some sense here. And then maybe draft, more of a true slot receiver. And they have DeVante Smith who can do both as well. So I like the Eagles for that. We'll see what happens. A lot of teams could be interested in because, again, cheap in terms of what you have to trade away, and I suppose the contract as well. But I don't think anyone's going to give up more than a 5th. I don't even see somebody giving that up. We'll see how desperate the Dolphins get. Moving on from a player like that. Next up, LAVISKA SHENAULT. It's a tricky one, too, mainly because of the value, the compensation. Will teams agree? So it's a guy that sneaky production, 600 yards both this year and last year. So it's kind of sneaky production. The Jags added a load of receivers. So where does he fall in that mix? He's kind of a gadget in a way type guy. Doesn't get a whole lot of separation, but it's been sneaky productive. Pretty damn good after the catch. Good guy you could put in the slot there, get him carries even. So there's some teams that could use that type of guy that may be looking for that type of guy. It's not for everyone, keep in mind. With the prediction, and we heard the Chiefs checked in. I think they checked in just in case it was real cheap. That's kind of my prediction there. And they also signed Marquez Valdes-Scantling since. They have Juju, who's kind of a slot guy as well. I think they will take Shenault if he's pretty cheap. I was kind of back and forth. Do I predict him to go somewhere or do I not? Because why I wouldn't predict is because I do see the Jags and the other team having a hard time agree on compensation. I think I can very easily see teams just offering six round pick, maybe a fifth, and the Jags being like, still a young player. It's been pretty productive. We can use him in different ways. No, we want this pick. Maybe they wouldn't even accept a fourth, and then where I have the value at. It might have to be a third for the Jags, and if it's a third for the Jags, I don't think anyone's paying that. Fourth round pick is kind of in the middle where it's like, maybe a team or two would be willing to pay that. And then maybe the Jags would be willing to. So that was the tough part. That's why originally he's going to go back to the Jags just because teams won't agree on value. I just really, really like the fit of the Falcons, so I kind of talked myself into that a little bit. I really like the fit. They need a receiver very, very badly. They were kind of linked to a guy like Jarvis Landry a bit, but I think he was only coming if their quarterback situation was looking real solid, but still possible. There's really a shortage now on some receivers. I don't think the veterans, the older veterans, I think they're going to go towards more of a contender. So they could trade for Shenault. Why I love the fit. Arthur Smith, the head coach of the Falcons, who used to be the offense coordinator of the Titans. This is kind of an Arthur Smith type guy, kind of an poor man's A.J. Brown type receiver, and then you throw in Mariota in the mix there with, you're going to run some read options, you're going to run some quick, dink and dunks and some end arounds perhaps. This guy really, on kind of multiple ways, really fits what the Falcons are trying to do there. I guess the argument against that would be they have Cordero Patterson. Do they view Cordero Patterson as the same type of player as Shenault? Do they view Patterson is more of a running back? You saw that last year. So that's kind of the argument against it. It'd be Cordero Patterson, but another guy that I view as more as a receiver. So we'll go with. I'm still hesitant as I'm talking, as you can tell. He very well could be back with the Jags because do they struggle to reach an agreement on the compensation there? So we'll see. We know the Chiefs checked in too, so that's interesting. But I don't know if I see them actually making a deal here. Talk about some quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield getting real tricky as well. Value's got to be around a third. Is it dropping to a fourth? Do the Browns pay a portion of the salary? Does that raise the price back up? I mean, it's a young quarterback with experience, with some upside. Even though he's kind of expensive on this one-year deal, it's still kind of, for quarterback, it's not a bad deal there. So that's the tricky part. I don't think. We heard rumors that the Browns are looking for a first. I don't think that's true. I don't know. It's hard for me to believe. We heard rumors that a team said, hey, we'll take Baker and a draft pick. That might actually happen. A team may have taken a swing at that, and the Browns just aren't going to do that. I think eventually there's not too many teams that make a whole lot of sense. The Panthers already said they're out. Maybe they come back in. I liked him for the Saints, but since they got Jameis Winston back, Tampa and Detroit are kind of the wild cards. Tampa, I think, would love to have him and then kind of learn from Brady for a year, then be the guy. The problem with that is you need the cap space now. The Bucs are kind of limited on that. And then you need to extend him after this year based on him just learning from Brady. So that's kind of tough. It just really goes back to the Seahawks. It just keeps going back to the Seahawks. So my prediction is they'll eventually trade for him. It might be after the draft. It might be if they get a quarterback or not, and then the Browns come down on their price, or be willing to pay a portion or both. So it's real tricky. But the only one that makes a ton of sense, Seattle. If the Panthers miss out on a quarterback in the draft, maybe they get kind of back in the mix. If the Lions don't take a quarterback, if the Lions don't take a quarterback at all in the draft, I think the Lions kind of shoot up to maybe the top, possibly. That'd be an interesting team. So we'll see. Chance it happens during or after the draft here for this one. The Nick Foles, we talked about that last night. Could Nick Foles be a trade candidate? And then today it ended up being, I think it's very little value. It could even be a swap of picks because if the Bears trade him, they clear $8 million. If they cut him, they clear $3 million. So $5 million difference there. They would like to trade him. Landing spots, Jacksonville as a backup. Doug Peterson's there. The Colts were interested in him back before the Bears got him. They have Matt Ryan now, but do they try to add another one? Probably a long shot. Panthers could use a quarterback, and they want to get better in this, though. Seattle could use a quarterback. The Texans could use a veteran, perhaps. The Saints could use another veteran in there, pair at Winston. And the Raiders were kind of doing homework on Simeon and trying to replace Mariota. The Bears actually got Simeon, so could they end up with him? The other team I was thinking about, I actually meant to list them, but only if he's cut. Tennessee, maybe, to get a quality backup behind Tannehill just in case there, but it can be more of a deeper wild card. So my prediction, maybe a little bold, the Saints, because they just signed Jameis Winston. I think the Bears eventually cut. I think teams are going to be like, we can get him for pretty damn cheap. Maybe a swap of picks, I know what would happen, but hey, the Bears are probably going to eventually cut him. They're not going to keep him with Simeon. They're going to clear that $3 million. And then I kind of went with the Saints. I was very tempted with the Seahawks, but I had the Seahawks are the only team that kind of makes sense for Baker. In the from the Browns. So if the Seahawks don't get Baker or don't, it's more so they don't plan. They for sure don't plan, no matter what happens in the draft, to not get Baker. They may try to get Foles before the draft even. So those are kind of linked in a way. So if I know that Seattle is not getting Baker, I'd probably predict Seattle for this. I think they would like to have that veteran guy like Foles in there. He actually played well against them last year, too, when he kind of got thrown in. I think it was snowing in that game. Not that it has a lot to do with it. It's one game. But if he's cut, I think Seattle turns their attention to either a rookie or Baker, possibly. I think the Jags is very intriguing because even if they trade for him, because they have a load of draft picks, Peterson would like to have him in there, maybe get Lawrence to learn the offense that he wants to run from Foles. That makes a ton of sense. The Jags, with all their spending, tight on cap space, their draft class is going to be pretty expensive as well. So they would need him to be cut, then get him for cheap. But then I think Foles is a type that's going to go somewhere where he might have a chance to play this year. I think with Trevor Lawrence there. So that's why I kind of was tempted to go Jags, but that's why not. And the Raiders, why they're a little bit down the list. They're going to be interested, but he's like, I'm not going to play if I go there. So that's where I go back to the Saints. You saw Winston, who's struggling in his career, but mainly the problem is the injury from last year. I think he's going to see the Saints there and be like, okay, yeah, I might have a shot here. And I think the Saints will like him as well to put him at the second string, because I think they really want to use Taysom Hill as more of the gadget type, so, but it could be Taysom Hill as second string, Ian Book as third, so it's a tough one. So I'm really looking at, there's a really good, easy ways to link him with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, I like the Seahawks if they don't chase a rookie, or even if they chase a rookie, I guess, but if they go after Baker, and the Raiders would be right after them. But the Saints would make sense to be that good insurance policy after Jameis Winston there, and it would make sense for Foles to be like, all right, this is out of these options, maybe Seattle's the one that has the best chance, but are they going to offer me? But then maybe it's the Saints. Maybe it's the Saints there, because some of these other landing spots, I think they may, he would have a shot there like Carolina, but do they actually try to get Foles? So that's the question there. Another quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, which is a tough situation. Impossible to figure out the value right now. I think the 49ers are winners if they get a 7th-round pick for him. I think he's worth more than that in terms of his talent, but they're trying to clear that $25 million. They kind of got screwed by the Garoppolo injury. Because I found out there's something within his contract where they can't just cut him and clear that full thing now because he's injured. He actually can get some money back there. So that's the tough part. Does somebody want to trade for the injured quarterback? They really want to clear that space so they can do some more damage in free agency here and then actually draft as well, which their draft class can be pretty cheap. But so the value is very, very tricky to figure out. It's almost a win for them if it's a late pick. I feel like they don't really want to, they're going to wait, actually. There's other teams that need quarterbacks. There's other teams that I would give some sort of small percentage to go for or end up with Garoppolo. But I really think it's right now it's the Panthers or the Steelers. And that's a tough one to predict because I'll predict he ends up with the Panthers if the Panthers miss out on a rookie quarterback. That's kind of my prediction, but I'm starting to think they're going to draft one in the first round. So am I technically predicting him to land with the Panthers? So I'll say he will if they miss out. So this could be a trade during draft or after draft here. And if not, then it's either Steelers or cut. But I think the Steelers, they picked up Trubisky. I think they'll draft one at some point. I don't know if they're, really want Garoppolo. The fit makes sense there, but it's a tricky one there because he's injured and the whole situation. I think the Panthers are kind of at that point where they're turning to the draft. They try to hit on a guy there. So with their first round pick there, what's inside the top 10. But maybe they miss on their guy. Maybe they only like one guy. Most teams do. And maybe they miss, and they're going to go get Garoppolo, I think, then. So that's kind of my take there. And a guy we've talked about in pretty much every one of these videos we made, James Bradberry, who the Giants wanted to trade, and they were getting some offers, but then it kind of, I guess, doesn't work out. And now all of a sudden it's coming out that they'll be willing to pay a portion. That doesn't make sense, though, that they'll be willing to pay a portion to be able to trade him. Maybe it would make sense if it's for a pretty damn good draft pick, but you held on to him. You actually paid a bonus already, so then you're going to go pay a portion for another team. The only way it makes sense if they get a really good draft pick, like a second rounder, which I don't see. So that's weird. I think a lot of teams interested, teams that still need corner. Here we are, halfway, I'd call it, through free agency. There's still a lot of talented guys out there. Stephon Gilmore sitting out there. Some veterans, Joe Hayden, Patrick Peterson, guys like that. So a lot of teams that still need corners. I went with the Chiefs here. I heard the Chiefs linked to Stephon Gilmore. Chiefs really don't, and I think he's going to be pretty expensive. So he'd have to take kind of a discount, and then I think the Chiefs end up with Gilmore instead of Bradberry. But I think he's sitting around because he wants his price. He wants the right price. I don't think the Chiefs pay that. I think the Chiefs could trade for Bradberry because they have a load of picks. I think the value's dropped. The Giants may be willing to pay a little bit of the portion, so it's 13.5 if not. So maybe a little bit less. They pay a portion, and then that it drops the value where the Chiefs are like, okay, this is worth it, and we need a corner as well. But the Chiefs don't really. They're never a team that's like pounding the table, like really valuing the corners. So the value, but again, with Bradberry, and that's why I don't think Gilmore, unless he takes a discount, because he's going to want around $15 million. But Bradberry, again, will the Giants pay a little bit of portion? The value's dropping in terms of what they have to trade, like a fourth-round pick or whatever it is. They gained a bunch of extra picks. They get a fourth round this year and next year out of that Tyreek Hill pick too. So that kind of made sense. There's teams that desperately need a corner. The Texans, but they maybe want the younger route. The Colts desperately need a corner. They've made a couple trades. I thought about the Colts here. Thought about them. Saints are always looking for corners. I linked them to the Raiders a few times before this, but they've added Rock Ya-Sin and Anthony Averett on top of Trayvon Mullen. They still need upgrades, but maybe they think they're done because they added a few guys there. But I've been linking them to the Raiders. Could the Jets? I think they turn their attention to a receiver maybe. There's some other teams that could use it that desperately need a corner, but do they pull the trigger on a trade here? So I'm going to go with the Chiefs for now. Could it be Bradberry or Gilmore? Does Gilmore take the discount? Do the Giants pay a portion to help the Chiefs out for them to do it? May only take a little bit, so we'll see. And then the last one, which I don't love doing because I don't believe in it, but I had people ask me and people tell me this is a rumor that's floating around. Tom Brady's going to the Dolphins. I haven't seen the actual rumor. I don't have interest in looking at it really. Tom Brady came back for one more year to play for the Buccaneers. He actually talked to Godwin, Mike Evans, these other guys before it was announced to the world. No, that's just kind of my response. I don't, if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, I guess. But I just, no, I don't think it's good. I think he's back with the Bucs for one more year. I don't think, even if he was like, yeah, trade me, I don't know if the Bucs would actually do it too with this whole mess that kind of went on. It just feels like they already linked up and they're already ready. They traded for Shaq Mason, who used to play under Tom Brady. The guys came back or are coming there because of Tom Brady. So I don't know where that rumor came from. The Bucs, the Brady to the Dolphins. It's kind of wild. It's just, and this was technically a rumors and predictions video. So let's get this out of the way. Don't think it happens. I'd be shocked. I don't know where that came from. And I think a lot of people are in agreement with me. I think a lot of people are in agreement with it here. maybe everybody watching this video. But that'll wrap up this one. Be interesting to see if any of these guys get traded. You feel like a DeVante Parker one's definitely got to happen. Between the Seahawks receivers, maybe one gets dealt. We'll see. It's heating up. Everyone's talking about their team getting DK. It's always fun. It's always interesting here. So we got live updates, thoughts, rumors, and more on our Twitter. So check that out. Link down below for recent videos. We got all kinds of free agency, draft, trade videos on the channel. So check it out. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on while you're at it. Much appreciated. Thank you for watching this video. It's going to do it. Goodbye.